this is Dr. Bob and Debbie DeMaria. Welcome once again to our Half Hour of Health program. And I want you to know that we enjoy having you be a part of our life each and every week. Come into the office, check out our website. We have different websites posted on the program as we talk throughout the half hour. Give us, just come on in, come to our Half Hour of Health. It's just a lot of fun to make a difference in people's lives, you know? What we're going to talk about today is different conditions and how your spine and the nervous system impact your life. You know, your very first organ in your body to develop is your spinal cord. Your spinal cord is inside of the spinal column. Your brain sends 28 billion messages every day to all the different tissues in the body. Your spine is made up of 24 vertebrae that move. Those vertebrae can go out of alignment. We call that a subluxation. Some of you listening to us, watching us right now, may be suffering from chronic headaches that won't go away. I had a young lady that came into my office yesterday. She does a lot of accounting, and she's so excited because ever since she started care in her office, her headaches are gone. Now, that might not mean a lot to you if you don't have a headache, but if you're used to taking pain medication every day that has bad effects, even aspirin has bad effects. It affects your digestion, it causes bleeding. But maybe you don't have headaches. You say, Dr. Bob, I'm suffering with constipation. What can you do for that? I'm glad you asked. Because what I want you to just visualize and think about, this is a circuit breaker. So I want you to think of the vertebrae in your spine, and there are 24 of them that move, are circuit breakers. So because of just everyday living, and in my practice, I can tell you 4 or 5 areas that I see the most challenge. People that are truck drivers, firefighters, nurses' aides, and those of you who work in heavy manufacturing, do a lot of lifting, you have a greater chance to have misalignment. Misalignment in the lower part of your spine can affect your colon. So your brain sends messages down the spinal cord, goes to all the organs and tissues in your body. So if this is the spinal cord in your body and your brain sends a message down, but let's just say here at this switch, it's shut off because you've been doing a lot of heavy lifting at work or raking around the yard or cutting grass or painting or shoveling snow or whatever it might be, and that vertebra is misaligned, you'll come into the office and we'll do an assessment and find misalignment, start the corrective process, and you'll notice your colon will improve with function. You know, I just happened to visit a particular store yesterday. I was standing in line. I had to get some batteries and some other items, and the lady in front of me, it's always interesting. You should come to the store with Dr. Bob. She was buying a product because she was constipated. I wanted so bad just to say something to her. And there are certain people you can say things to, and there's certain people you really shouldn't say things to. I just didn't feel totally comfortable giving her a little edge and say, you know, if you drank more water, if you ate more vegetables, and if you came into my offices just right over there across the street, we probably could help you without those medications. Then I could continue on and said, do you know that medications have bad effects, not side effects? See, all side effects really are bad effects. She probably would have taken a little offense to it because just by looking at her, I knew that she needed to make immediate appropriate lifestyle changes. And I know you have testimony too from going to various stores.
Well, I'm not going to talk about that right yet, maybe a little bit later on, but what I want to ask you, and because I think the people out there are probably going, huh, that was an over-the-counter drug. So do you mean over-the-counter drugs have bad effects, not just prescription drugs have bad effects?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting you bring that up because so many prescriptions or so many over-the-counter medications today used to be prescription medications. And somewhere along the line, either through pressure on the FDA or some kind of special rule, there are no longer, do they all have to be prescription, but they're very powerful over-the-counter medications, in which there's always going to be some kind of paperwork in there. Because see, now listen to me, medications manage symptoms caused by something else. And I know that sometimes it seems so simple. You know, even salvation is so simple. It's just believing in Jesus and confessing that Jesus is the Lord of your life. I mean, God did not make this complicated. But in the human body, what the body does is so simple. If you have misalignment in your spine, your brain cannot send messages. So what's been so powerful for us, Deb, being chiropractors and in a chiropractic family, computers have helped us explain the story. What I'm holding in my hand right now is a miniature version of a circuit panel. See, I want you to think of your spine as a set of circuits. Circuits, as you know, can go off. And if they go off for whatever reason, it's going to affect the electricity that's going to come from your pole outside or wherever the source of electricity comes into your house, condominium, or apartment. So if you don't have the electricity or the energy, your refrigerator is not going to work. Well, in the human body, I'm going to share a thought with you. Gravity is pushing down constantly. Gravity never takes a vacation. It's relentless. If you compound that with the fact that you do a lot of household chores, it's going to affect alignment or your posture. So what we do as a part of our new patient assessment in our practice is that we look at our patient's posture. And we take it to the next step is that we take a picture of our patient's posture. So when they come in for the report of the findings, and we have everything laid out on our computer screen, and I show them a picture of their posture, and I had a gentleman that came in just yesterday, Deb, and he looked at me, and he looked at his posture, he goes, this guy was like 30 years old. He goes, I never realized I was so off. So if you're looking at me right now as I speak and your head is like this, your spine is like that. And so what I show our patients when they come in, I'm showing them the report of the findings, I'm showing them how their spine is. Then I flip the computer screen and I show them what their posture looks like. And it's like the light bulb goes off in their head because they see as your posture is, so is your spine. So I'm going to give you all a little homework after we're done and we take a short break, is I want you to go look at the mirror. I want you to close your eyes, take your head back and forth, left and right, and I want you to look at your posture. And I'm going to tell you right now, if your posture is off, you can take pills and potions until the cows come home. You will not get better. You may treat symptoms with medications, like Debbie just said, that will trick your body into thinking that you're healthy. But what happens is someone like yourself will come into our office and 2, 3, 4, or 5 years from now have had your 8th sinus surgery, look at me and say, Dr. Bob, I hear that you can help sinuses. I know you're a chiropractor, but how does chiropractic help sinuses? So I want to educate you now. $3 billion a year spent just on one particular drug called Claritin to help manage symptoms by and for sinus challenges. Well, I know if you have misalignment of your neck up here, that's putting pressure on a nerve to your sinus, you could take those medications forever. Your sinuses will not permanently heal. Actually, years ago, they had a recall of a medication that was a nasal spray that people sprayed into their nose, and it burnt the lining of their nose, and it permanently damaged their ability to smell. And see, most of taste comes from the whole smell nerve anyway. So if you're suffering right now, which I know a lot of you are, with a chronic sinus problem, and or you're thinking about having your sinuses drilled, let me share this with you. So you have sinuses here and you have sinuses here. Well, right in here, there's little holes because your sinuses have moisture in them. So if those little holes get plugged up, you're going to have this pressure, this nagging, gnawing pain. So you go to the over-the-counter remedies at the local drugstore. You might go see your practitioner, your medical doctor, and they're going to give you a medication, which is usually an antihistamine, which has bad effects, which could mean drowsiness or sleepiness, so you can't use heavy machinery or drive or really have any kind of focused position. But I'll have a patient come into the office, we'll do the assessment like we've talked about in the past, we'll see misalignment, so instead of this being intestines, it's your sinus, make the correction to the sinus, and people get off the table and they'll say to me, that was faster than Benadryl, Dr. Bob, without any bad effects, Deb.
You know what, Dr. Bob, I just want to show this without the organ that you had placed in front of it, because I don't think people get the whole gist of this. With this is the circuit breaker, which you were clipping off and on, and this is like analogous to the spinal cord.
And the nerves, yes.
And the nerves. And then this, where the nerves coming from the spinal cord, and then this here is how the electric would come.
That is correct.
If we look in the electrical atmosphere, but we're looking in the spinal atmosphere right now, and so what happens is this part here, if it's shut off, there will be no electric here.
That's right.
The same thing is if this right here is shut off, and it really, instead of the electrical outlet that you would get electricity in your home, that ending goes to an organ or tissue of your body, and it stops whatever messages that need for it to function properly.
You did that very well, Deb. So in a diagram form, it looks like this. It's actually called the safety pin cycle. Your brain sends a message to an end organ. The end organ takes that information, does what it's supposed to do, and sends the message back to the brain. And the brain said, well done, good and faithful servant. And then another message goes. So when you're eating and you're digesting, we had a conversation with someone the other day, said their esophagus tightens up. You know, Debbie, we take so much for granted. So we've had patients come into the office, make corrections to the mid-back area, and guess what happens to them? Their digestion improves. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back, and we're going to talk some more about turning the power on in your body. Hello, this is Dr. Bob and Debbie DeMaria. Welcome once again to our Half Off Health program. You know, the first segment we were just talking about turning the power on inside of your body, and Debbie just had such a great example of how our bodies work like electrical outlets and plugging items in and plugging items out and everything being shut off. Well, I'm going to share a couple other thoughts with you. In our practice, it's almost like we have a CSI practice. Technology has finally caught up to what we've been talking about for over 30 years. What I'm holding in my hand right now is just a diagram of a piece of equipment which is called an infrared scanner. See, your body and my body emits heat. And because it emits heat, we can measure that. The piece of equipment we have in our office is called a thermography unit. So we can run this infrared scanner. Now, it's not an X-ray, it's not radiation, it's an infrared scanner that measures temperature. So what we've learned, if you have misalignment in your spine, it affects the temperature in and around your spine. So you may in fact have increased or decreased temperature. But can I share something with you that you may have never heard before, which I'm sure you haven't heard before? When somebody comes into our office and we're asking them questions about where their pain is, how often they have it, and if they've taken a medication, do you know that it's going to skew the results of the thermography? You say, what does that mean, Dr. Bob? That means that if they're taking an antidepressant, a painkiller, a muscle relaxant, that the body, when we go to scan it with our scanner, all the temperature is the same. It's like it shuts the body down. Now, I want you to really pay attention because this is really significant what I'm going to share with you. So this upper one is just showing you someone That's not normal. So this can happen because of a trauma or injury or gravity. Even what you eat can impact that. The one below would be someone who's received care, and over time the temperatures are the same. We also see this in people who have taken different types of medication. So what we want you to understand is that medication is tricking your body. Here's the point. I have read research that individuals who are taking pain medication and they have a fracture will heal slower or not as complete as people who don't take the pain medication. And do you want to know why? It's because your brain is using pain as a gauge for healing. You see, if there's pain somewhere in your body and your brain recognizes it, it's going to send messages to different cells and say, hey, fibrin, fibrinogen, those happen to be histological cells, go down to the elbow. He just hurt his elbow and we need to fix it. But if he's been taking aspirin to keep his blood thin because he's had his hand in the cookie jar, this person's going to be someone who always has pain, and as soon as they get off their aspirin, they're hurting everywhere because their body has been literally tricked for years. Does that make sense, Deb?
It does make sense.
You think they got it?
I hope so, because it's very important what you said. So I'm sitting here going, you know, that's a great confirmation of everything, especially for our patients sitting in the office and listening to this right now, or anyone out there. It's like amazing what our body does.
I know, because, you know, and I just read this article. They had an article in the Wall Street Journal which has so much information, and you can just go online and type in Wall Street Journal. Every Tuesday they have the Personal Health Journal. Well, I just read something about people who take the blood thinner called warfarin, and that people who take that heal 25% slower than those who do not. So if you're taking Plavix, because they have all these advertisements of little red blood cells going through and sticking and not sticking, and I'm not telling you to go off your medication. That is not the purpose. I am here to wake you up a bit. So in our practice, just talking about these blood thinners just for a moment, you need to be taking a good quality oil. You see, this oil will take pain away and cause your blood cells not to stick naturally, the way God intended it to be. So I talked about you had your hand in the cookie jar. Sugar causes inflammation in the body. Sugar causes blood cells to stick together. So what's happening to you as an American, and I'm not trying to browbeat anybody right now, but I really am. By you having your hand in the cookie jar, you go to see your healthcare provider, so you want to have your cake and eat it too. Well, over time, you continue to do this, your body's going to literally break down.
You know what, Dr. Bob, what we're talking about today is so important. This is really the life of what our practice is, and it's really the answer to many of your health challenges. As we are talking through all of this, there is another great analogy you give, and I would love you to take just a few minutes out and explain it, because it's a great visual. Is, what about when your refrigerator doesn't work?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting, and this actually happened to us a few years ago. It was during the middle of the summertime, and a squirrel chewed a wire on the transformer, and the power to our house went out. So I'm really blessed because our next door neighbor is on a different line. So I ran the extension cord over from his house to our house for our refrigerator and our freezer. Let's just say that I did not have access to power, and the refrigerator and the ice start to melt. So I have a couple choices. So let's just say I just didn't know what to do. So I called my medical doctor up, and I say, listen, and the fine receptionist answers the phone. My refrigerator's not working. What do you think? What would Dr. So-and-so say for me to do? And the lady would get off the phone, come back. Well, Dr. So-and-so says, I want you to go to the local service station, get 2 bags of ice. And every 4 hours, just put a new bag of ice in there. You'll be fine. So after I go to the service station, buy the ice, didn't have a prescription card, buy the ice on my own, put it in there, and over an hour or two, guess what starts to happen? The ice starts to melt, and it goes through the seam on the door onto the carpet. That happens to be the bad effect. So I'm thinking to myself, this does not make sense. So I go and I get one more serving of the ice, put it in there, and I have this huge puddle on the carpet underneath my refrigerator. And I kind of don't like this. So I think, you know what, I'm going to call up Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob seems to have an answer for everything. So the individual calls the office, the receptionist answers the phone and says, you tell them what the problem is, and they say, oh, that's simple. And what they encourage you to do, so let's just say the power came back on. She just says, go flip the switch. Go turn the power back on. So many of you will keep on putting ice bags and ice bags and ice bags in your body for a year, or medications with all the bad effects. And all along, you could have had misalignment in your spine because maybe you're raking the leaves too hard, or maybe you played football when you were a kid and the vertebrae are settling down, or maybe you were involved in a motor vehicle accident. But somewhere along the line, however it occurred to you, you misaligned the vertebra, putting pressure on sensitive nerves. So it makes much more sense to make sure your spine is properly aligned and all the information is flowing to all the organs and tissues in your body versus keeping on taking a chemical. Deb, isn't that just phenomenal?
It is. So we don't need to put artificial anything in our body because our body can heal itself. Now, I'm not saying in an emergency, in a car accident, certain items that we don't need certain medications. But when we take them over and over and over again, years of use, without anything changing or being different, without even saying, do you think we should check this out a little bit further? You might want to question yourself in what you're doing. You know, the bad effects of one drug makes a difference in when you add an additional drug there, how your body functions. You're dealing then with two sorts of chemicals, bringing two sorts of negative energies. And really, I can't even imagine, because we have some people coming in with 30 medications that they take. And can you think about what your body is trying to have an understanding of? We're tricking our body too many ways.
Well, one medication has 10 bad effects. You put two medications together, it increases exponentially. It's 100. 3 is 1,000, 4 is 10,000, 5 is 100,000, 6 is 1,000,000, 7 is 10 million, 8 is 100 million, 9 different meds. Now, Debbie said, we have had patients come in taking 30 medications a day. It's a lot. 9 medications will cause 1 billion reactions in your body. It's called polypharmacy. People die because of polypharmacy. And it's not going to go away because the average Medicare patient takes between 5 and 7 medications. And it was recently reported, are you ready for this? 25% of all the kids in the United States today, 25% of the kids in the United States today take a medication. Do you know how many prescription medications were given to kids for asthma in 2009? 45 million prescriptions. 25 million for ADHD. 10 to 15 million for antidepressants and psychotic meds. We are talking that we say tell kids no to drugs, but we are just giving them literally millions of prescriptions every day of the year. Okay, now let's just say that you're suffering from some of these conditions: sinuses, chronic lung problems, digestive distress. You have neck, arm, back pain, especially on the left side of your neck that won't go away. Call our office. You know, every week in our office we have a program called the Half Hour of Health. Wednesday at noon, Thursday at 6. So many of you came in and have been a part of that. You've listened, you've learned. We have books for you to read. Our goal, our passion is to make a difference in your life. This is real. You've seen patients on, or people on the program that have been patients of ours that have awesome testimonies. Why don't you think about having your power turned back on? Why don't you come into the office and have an assessment? We normally charge $160 to $165 to $200 for an exam and an x-ray, but because you've been watching the program, we'll do it for only $25. Why? Because I want to make a difference in your life. I love for you to be on the program with us. Make it your goal also to be on TV with Dr. Bob and Debbie. Make that call today. I promise you, you'll be glad you did.